Good day, podcast community. PeteKane here, Podcast Pete and lifestyle coach. And we got a guy that you're going to want to listen to. He's got a good lifestyle. He's growing out his hair, and he said he'd cut it if he gets a hole in one. So all my golfers out there, invite him to your club and give him those short little par threes so we can get that haircut now.
Okay. I need all the luck I can get.
Yeah, hey, look, I got my first one on a 100-yard hole, and I take it. I love it. I've been so close on so many longer holes, so I don't care. As long as it's a par three and I can tee it up and it goes in the hole, I'm fine.
I was really close 3 times.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll have to talk about that when we get going. But tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and we'll get into our podcast.
So my name is Tom Gonter. I'm a native of Atlanta, although I've lived in Seattle, and I lived 11 years in Huntington Beach, California. And moved back to Cobb County 25 years ago. So my forte is sales. I was in publishing for 24 years. Mm-hmm. Then I was fortunate enough in 2016 to get hired by Must Ministries to help fundraising. Mm-hmm. So I was in the development department. Did that, loved that. It was great. Had a wonderful time. There's wonderful people, wonderful organization. But left at the end of June of this year. Was going to retire. So you know how that goes. But yeah. I was off for 6.5 months, but I had kept in touch with several other nonprofits while I was doing that. And just kind of fell in with Together with Families. It's a little nonprofit here in East Cobb. Mm-hmm. Their mantra is to keep kids out of foster care. Really, it is wonderful. And a great group. They're small, so I can have an immediate impact. And they were doing a great job on programs, but they didn't know how to fundraise. So I'm doing that part-time now. And hopefully I'll help them raise some money and help families and help kids. And so that's what I'm doing.
I love when people talk about nonprofits, but I think, and we've talked about this before, there's thousands of nonprofits out there, and the founder or the team, they're passionate about what they do.
Sure.
But, not everybody is as passionate as you are about your nonprofit. And if you can't raise money, you're not going to go very far in the nonprofit space. What do you think is lacking when people struggle with getting the Must Ministry momentum and the fundraising to support what you're doing? Because most nonprofits make a serious impact out there, but either you make a small impact or a big impact. What do you think is the difference?
Well, I think in the development world, so that's fundraising, a lot of people put the cart before the horse. They want to get money in right away. Well, sales is not a right-away business unless you're selling something on TV, you can call an 800 number. It's all about relationships. Mm-hmm. And that's been my whole career. I've been relationship-based selling for 35 years. And so what you do, especially in fundraising, is you have to get to know your donor. You have to get to know your corporate partner. Mm-hmm. Ask a lot of questions. Start a relationship. A relationship is not me saying, hey, will you give me $1,000? It's, what is your community involvement? Who are you donating to now? What is your passion? The passion is going to drive it. And so you just start to build that one brick at a time. Also, be transparent. Let them know exactly what your organization does. When you say you're going to do something, do it. Mm-hmm. Follow up and just make them be aware of what you guys are doing. Doesn't have to be day in and day out, but at least, once a month, once a quarter, something like that. And then people who have the heart for what you're doing, they will start to come over, because people always, and you're a consumer, I'm a consumer, they deal with people they like. Mm-hmm. And they trust. And if you have a good product, then that all falls in line.
Yeah, it's you know I think we've chatted about this. Common sense is not always common practice,
That's
and
right.
we rush things. It's kind of like you go out on a first date and you ask the person to marry you. That doesn't work. You got to build a rapport. You got to go through getting to know each other and all that. And in the nonprofit, there's so much, you know, it's a fast paced, a lot going on. What is your like best tip you could share with our community that you use to really build that relationship and do the play that long game, which I think is so important.
For me, it was always ask a lot of questions and listen. Do a lot less talking. You don't need to talk about every single thing that the nonprofit does. Mention a couple of things right away, key points, but that's it. That's your first conversation. You don't need to drill down into every little thing that you're doing because they just need to get an overview. Plus, information overload can turn anybody off, especially in a sale or
Mhm.
or a relationship building. So just keep it simple.
What do you think when you retired in June from us? I've all my friends are retiring because I'm 68 and I went to my 50th high school reunion and they're all saying, "When are you going to retire?" I said, "Never, never," because we die 2 years after retirement if we lose the connections,
Sure.
don't have a meaningful purpose, and we don't keep growing. What was it like in June? Okay, you've retired. You're the next day, that Monday, and I've had a number of my friends. We talk about this. What was that Monday like? Like you didn't have to be anywhere. You were just now officially a free agent.
Right.
What was it like?
It was great. But you have to figure out your days. And I always tell people when you retire, you're used to taking on so much. You're doing something every single day. When you wake up and you don't have to go to the office, but my wife passed away about 2 years ago. So I run my house. I'm a sales guy, so I've got a extroverted personality. I've got a lot of family, a lot of good friends, a lot of great people I've met along the way. So I kept in touch with those folks. I always scheduled two things during the day that I could accomplish, whether that's clearing out the leaves in the yard or going grocery shopping or cleaning the house or whatever it was, meeting somebody for lunch. I think you need a goal every day and then some longer term goals. So I was talking to you earlier about my trip to the Isle of Man. So it's going to happen this June. It's a big, huge motorcycle race. And that's one of the three things on my bucket list. And it's the first one. So I've been planning that. And I know I'm looking forward to accomplishing that and being there and seeing what I want to see. So I think, goals, short-term goals, long-term goals, and keep in touch with people.
Hmm.
Even if you're not an extrovert, you've got probably 4 or 5 or 6 good friends. Will schedule lunches, schedule breakfast, or go somewhere like a Starbucks, and you might not know anybody, but start talking to somebody.
Hmm.
You never know what's going to happen during your day.
Yeah, that I when I had a brace and a cane after my stroke, I found that people would avoid me. It's like I guess they just didn't know what to say.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
hard.
and it's understandable. I understand it. But I had to put like one of the brace, I had to have a tennis shoe on it. And instead of taking that tennis shoe off each time, I left it on there. So I ended up wearing different colored tennis shoes sometimes. But I found that people would talk to me when I had two different colored tennis shoes on. It was kind of like an icebreaker. Well, after I got rid of the cane, got rid of the brace, I kept it on because people will talk to you and you can have those meaningful conversations, even if it's a couple minutes. It's just talking to people, having
Yes.
that connection. And I'll probably always have it now because I'm so used to having those cool conversations with strangers because the ice is broken. What do you do? Like, I know you're an extrovert. I've known you for a number of years. What do you do to kind of break the ice?
Well,
Longer hair?
the long hair is one of them, but I wear wild socks.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Something that people will look at and go, wow, those are kind of cool socks. And, then you can start talking.
Yeah.
I remember the first trade show I went to when I was in the motorcycle business. It was in Vegas. I was the brand new guy. I didn't know anybody, right? So I'm there. I took along a big fake clip-on red bow tie. And I wore that red bow tie the whole time I was at the trade show. And people might not remember my name, but they'd come by the booth and say, "Where's that guy with the big bow tie?" There's just always something you can kind of do. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love that because it is, I even have a person, she's going to be president of our Rotary in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were talking one Thursday morning, and she said something about she was an introvert. I don't know what the conversation was. And so I said, I'm kind of both. I when you take me out of, being where I charge the battery, I'm loving it, but I have to kind of go back to my cave and read and journal and all that stuff to recharge the battery. But she said she had gotten this book, and she's an introvert, and now she's going to be president. So I hear a lot of times people say, I don't want to be on your podcast. I'm an introvert. I can't. I don't want to be on your podcast because I'm an introvert. And I said, well, great. I'm both. But here's what I've discovered. She read this book and she leaned into it, and it was questions is what I'm getting at. It was all the questions to start that dialogue. And when you can ask questions, you get to learn, and she doesn't feel like she's got to be the star of the show or the center of attention because she's asking these questions. And it was beautiful. It was like 25 questions in this book about how an introvert connects, because we all got to connect. It doesn't matter whether you're an introvert or extrovert.
Right.
We all need people. What would you say in the nonprofit, when you're dealing with an introvert and you're an extrovert, how do you handle? Do you do anything different with asking questions, or is there anything else that you kind of have used in the past that has worked for you?
Not really. I just take each individual as an individual. One of my favorite starters is, well, where are you from? Because I've traveled all over the country, right? And if they go Cleveland, Ohio, and I said, well, I've been to Cleveland. That's where the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is, or whatever it is. I can usually start that little click, and then they get a chance to talk about themselves, right? And that's how you learn about somebody. So you just keep doing that, and then, and then the conversation can shift different ways. But an introvert is usually somebody who doesn't feel comfortable talking in a group more so than they do on a one-on-one.
Yes.
So you can usually get them talking, and then they go, that was a nice guy, or he asked some cool questions, or I learned something about him. I didn't know he was from Atlanta, a native. There's not that many natives that come around and you see like that. Or he lived in California for 11 years. I wonder what that was like. It was great, So that's what I do.
Yeah, I love that. Now, your work with you recently and with helping kids stay out of foster homes. I have a good friend in my church, and before they had their boys, they ran a foster home up in Asheville. But as they were having a family, the demands of it required them to make some adjustments.
Oh, sure.
But what do you think, like, you're stepping in to a smaller nonprofit? You've worked for one of the biggest in the city. Now you're going to be working for a smaller one. Is there anything you're going to do differently growing a smaller nonprofit versus what you were doing at Must Ministry?
Not really. The basics are there. So I'm working together with families. They're So it's families dash, what was it? No, together dash families.org.
Mhm.
No, because I'm my own department, really. They don't have fundraisers. They're,
Mm.
obviously they have raised money, but they're
Mhm.
really concentrated on the program side, the political side, all that kind of stuff, that red tape that's got to go through everything. So I'm pretty free to do whatever I need to do. And that's what I've learned from Must Must is tried and true. The the formula there is pretty much the same for, I think, any nonprofit. Yeah, we had a $25 million budget as opposed
Mhm.
to this is a lot smaller, but the
Mhm.
objective is the same.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I did notice that Ike was named, I guess, CEO of something. I saw his picture on LinkedIn. So,
Yeah.
what was it like to work with a person like Ike Reighard?
So I didn't work directly with Ike because I was in development. He was CEO. But fortunately, I got to be and am good friends with him. And we would get together and talk. We talk mostly about music. He's a very interesting fellow, and he's got a great background. And he's relationship based. But he was funny. He would go, I have a really hard time talking to people one on one. That's your strength. And I said, well, you can talk to 20,000 people on a podium on a stage, and that's like your second nature. So we kind of balanced each other out, which was neat.
Hmm.
Um, you know, you just meet so many incredible people, especially in the nonprofit space, along the way, and it's such a treasure and a pleasure to be a part of that, because it's a community that really cares about people day in and day out, and that's the hard part, is doing the same thing every day, trying to help somebody, trying to help somebody get out of a difficult situation and get to the stability that they need.
Yeah, that is good. When we work with businesses, we'll find that some people will focus on whatever their supply is, whatever their services are. And people don't buy your service, they buy the result. And so they forget about the demand. If you can't create the demand for whatever you're doing, you don't have a business. When it comes to nonprofits, they're not any different, but just in that you're dealing with different types of people. People are people. What would you say, demand wise, as you go into this new smaller nonprofit? Are you thinking about, like, how can I generate more awareness and demand for your nonprofit? And what does what will the week look like for you to go out there? Because you're a one person department,
Mhm.
you got to be doing it all. So have you thought through, like, because I think you're just starting out, like, what will be that short term goal, and what will be that long term goal that you'll set out to do?
Yeah, I've already formulated a plan in my head. So it's kind of the same thing. Luckily, I was with Musk for 8.5 years. I've got a lot of connections in the community, right?
Hmm.
Both corporate and individuals. So some of the top people that I dealt with, company wise or donor wise, I let them know this week that I was going to be doing that. So I've already set up, 3 lunches and 4 meetings. So it's going to be easier for me because I have that background. For
Hmm.
somebody new, you just need to find out. So when I first started with Must, I would go to these business associations and talk. And luckily, Must had a great brand, right? So pretty much everybody knew the name Must. They might not know
Hmm.
everything they did,
Hmm.
but they had a good idea of some of the stuff they did. So what I would do is try to qualify them, and that would be discovery, right? Ask questions where their heart was. Was it feeding children? Was it helping homeless people? Was it the human services? And that's what Must is, right? Or was it saving animals or curing cancer or whatever it was. So you got to kind of know who your customer is, right? In any business, you got to know, and what they want, not what you want, is what they want. And you give them the opportunity, and I think this is key, to change somebody's life. Not just give money, but you have the opportunity to really, really make an impact on your local community, which is huge.
That is so good. You know, we both went to military high schools, so we have a little bit of that common thread.
Hence the long hair.
Yeah, I know. As soon as I got out of high school, I grew mine because it's like
me too.
you shaved the whole time. You just want to do something a little different. I get together and have relationships back, my high school buddies, we talk. And I'll talk to another person at another, that had another high school, and they say, I don't even stay in touch with my high school friends. Do you think there's anything to a military kind of environment or a school? Like we both went to both. Do you connect? Do you still talk with? Do you still have those relationships with the people you went to high school with?
I do. I even have relationships with grade school pupils. I helped put on 2 reunions from my grade school by myself, and it was great. But yes, so tomorrow I'm going to lunch, and it's a Marist Pius lunch. So 3 people from St. Pius High School and 4 people from Marist. We meet once a quarter and have lunch and talk about what we're doing now and the old days and just anything in general. But yes, I've always believed in long-term relationships. I've had friends that I've known since 2nd grade, and I just like to keep those relationships. And it's a nice link to the past, but it's also what we're experiencing today. Because like you said, all my friends are retiring too, and they've got their own set of maybe some physical difficulties or financial. It just all depends. And, I'm there to help people too. And they can listen to me. And they were great when my wife was sick for 5 years. I had a lot of support from my friends and families, and especially Must Ministries. They were great. So, you just kind of rely on those. And good people are hard to find, so keep them close.
That is good advice. I lived at a senior facility, and the average age was 80 for a year and a half. And so I saw quite a few people lose their spouse in that journey. How did you get through when you lost your wife a couple of years ago? What helped you to get through and you never get back to normal, but what could you share with our community that helped you?
I think still working at Must helped me tremendously. So I had a job to go to, right? And I had people that were very supportive and empathetic. So that was big. But you just go one day at a time, just like anything else. You have your ups and your downs, and you feel liberated, and then again you feel sad. There's a whole range of emotions that you will experience when somebody like that is gone. She was sick for 5 years, so it was so it wasn't like she just had a heart attack and then was gone. I had time to emotionally kind of prepare for it, but you never do fully. You kind of knew what to expect, but I had things planned out, so there wasn't that sudden, I gotta do this to prepare for her burial or whatever. So yeah, it was just going back to work, I think, was huge.
Being a caretaker and serving at those 5 years, what was the challenging thing about that time frame in your life?
It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, day in and day out, because I did have some help. I employed some nurses here and there to come in and do some things, but 90% of it was on me. And my younger son, he stayed home too and helped with things. And our wonderful golden retriever was there to lift everybody's spirits. But no, it's really difficult. just the grind and knowing that she's not going to get better. She was terminal. So she was going to die at some point. It's just, it's a grinder, man. When it happened, I was sad, but I was happy that she was no longer in pain, and happy that I no longer had to just deal with it every day. Really tough.
Do you see, I talk to people, and I did tend to not take care of yourself because you're pouring in to your wife, your spouse, the person. How did you take care of yourself during that time?
Well, like I said, I have the golden retriever, so I walked her every day. I played golf. I have a motorcycle. I've been riding motorcycles for 50 years. So I would take that out occasionally and just ride, just get away from everything. And then friendships and lunches and, like I said, job. That was good. So I had a number of avenues, but even though you're gone for 2 hours, you're never gone. Because you've got that same, what you're coming back to. And it's a really difficult situation. But got through it, and I've kind of continued on. I've enjoyed my life since then, and just try to do something fun and do something for myself. And that was the hardest thing too, right? You're really concentrated on helping that individual. You kind of forget about yourself for the most part. So when that happened, and then about a year went by, and I decided to retire from Must, I needed that 6 months to just concentrate on me, make myself physically better, mentally better, just kind of throw a lot of that garbage out, and
Do you know Dave Griffith?
Yes.
Yeah, he has a similar journey. I don't know if I said that when we talked a couple of times, but he has a similar journey. It was a long journey that he was the caretaker for his wife at the time, and she passed. And it was just like, he said, the hardest thing he ever did in his life by far, by 10 times, because, it is. And he was sharing with me that part of his life. What would you say, like, if you had to advise a younger Tom, he's getting out of high school, knowing what you know today, what would you tell Tom?
That is a really interesting question. I don't know if I know the answer to that. I've done a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have done, but I learned from them. I've met a lot of people that were good for me and not good for me. And I've learned from that experience. I think just life is a learning. Learn as much as you can, and don't repeat the same mistakes over and over again. That's where you fall into that rut. And be careful who you hang out with.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. Where they say you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around the most. And
sure.
Choose your associations, your friends wisely.
Exactly. And relationships come and go.
Yeah.
I've met some people that I thought were going to be my friends forever, and they haven't been. And then I've met some people that I didn't think was a good fit, and I was like, well, why am I pursuing this? But I got to know them, and then they've turned out to be some of my best friends. So it's funny how things work out.
Yeah. What would you say, like, a friend of mine just joined, not friend, but we met through a mentoring program at Kennesaw Mountain High School. And he just he was in between jobs, and he just hooked up with another company. But what he did was, during that time he was serving. He served at Must Ministry and other places. And I remember I was unemployed twice, and it wasn't a fun time.
No.
can only do so much LinkedIn, whatever,
Yeah.
and you're just like, you'll finally get something, but you don't know when. And so each time I said, man, I wish I would have done it differently, because I was not stressed, but kind of stressed about when is that going to happen? Oh, we'll get back to you. All this drags on and on and on. When do you think you kind of really leaned into serving? Because I know you as a person that serves. Did that happen after high school? Did it happen in an event that you just started serving and filling that heart up and really enjoying that part of it? Was there a time?
No, I mean, when I was younger, I was pretty self-centered. I went racing. I was racing, so I was kept busy, right? I had racing, and then I got married, and then you have 2 kids, and so that takes up a chunk of your life. So it wasn't until life got less complicated and before my wife got sick that I started thinking about, well, I'm getting older. Hopefully I'm wiser. I started thinking about the nonprofit space. And I was at the Kennesaw Business Association, and Vicki Agajanian and I were sitting at a table together. She was with LG forever. And she says, "Are you going to run the Gobble Jog?" And I said, I just moved back from California. I said, "What's the Gobble Jog?" And she said, "Oh, it's a charity event by Must Ministries." And I said, "I've heard of Must, but I don't really know who they are." She goes, "Well, they have got a table right out front, and there's Betsy Matthews, and she's at the table. And she'll sign you up to run." And I said, "Well, I don't run. I'll play a lot of sports, and I did a lot of things, but I hated to run." So she said, "Well, will you volunteer?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I will." So I went out and talked to Betsy, and she goes, "Yeah, you got to be there at 5:30 in the morning on Thanksgiving morning." I said, "Well, you know what?" I said, "I'd do it." And so I signed up, went to the volunteer registration, saw this silver-haired guy having a donut and a coffee, and it turned out to be Ike. I didn't know who he was. I talked to him for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then a lot of people came in and got him, like, "Oh, he must be somebody." So he had to start the race. But then I just saw how compassionate the volunteers were, the people, and the community was, big support from the community. And I said, "This is a really cool event. So I want to do it again." And then I started doing the North Georgia Fair for food drives, volunteering here and there for different events, so golf tournaments and stuff like that. And just got hooked on it. And then, 4 or 5 years later, they hired me, and that's how I got my start, with Must.
Yeah, that is so good. I'm glad you shared that. I'm in Rotary, and there was a gentleman. He was sharing his story. He was with the YMCA, and the director said, You got to join the Rotary because you want to be connected to the community. You want to do." And he goes, "It's part of my job." Okay, and he did it. And he talked about how Rotary got in him, like he started seeing the hearts, the impact, the things that were going on. And now he's working for him. He's president of the Rotary. And it's interesting you said, like, that was that first step of going and getting up at 5:30. Like, a lot of people sleeping in on Thanksgiving, and you're out there in the cold. But it started a journey, and you saw how that has really, affected people. Because I guess where I was trying to go with David was, he started serving instead of sitting at home jumping on the computer and trying to send out resumes. He just kept serving. He was Must and other places, and all of a sudden now he's working and everything. So you never know where it's going to go, but if you serve, wonderful things can happen, but you don't know until you step into that service.
Well, I tell people all the time, especially people our age that are retiring, I said, "Look, if you don't have a lot of hobbies, find a nonprofit close by that you have a heart for, and go volunteer, because you are going to get back tenfold what you put in. I guarantee it. It's a wonderful experience. You're helping people every day. You have a purpose, and it's just good for everybody."
Yeah, so good. Well, I know we want to have you back because either when you get that hole in one, cut your hair, our viewers are going to want to see what Tom looks like with
Yeah,
short
yeah.
hair, or we're going to see continued long hair and you're still working at that hole in one.
Yeah,
So
I might look like Cousin It by that time. Who knows?
So what would you want? Tell our viewers how can they get a hold of you, especially with your new moving into the space of helping families stay keeping. What is it? Keeping people out of foster care? Is that
Correct.
the
Children
okay?
out of foster care
Keeping
and helping
children
families get stable
stable.
and build a community within those families to where they've got support.
That's
So a
awesome.
lot of people have to give up their children because of poverty. Well, if you can eliminate that, the children can stay with the family. Anytime a child can stay with a good family, right, and not abusive, they're much, much better off. We've seen the statistics on fail rates going into foster care because you're just shuffled around. And but they can reach me on LinkedIn. So Tom Gonter. Find me out there. I'll even give my email address. It's tgonter74@gmail.com. You can call me or you can email me there. And you can see me at all the events that I'll be at coming up. So KBA, MBA, and probably East Cobb Business Association. Go there, network, and I'll just be out and about. But together with families, Google that, Marietta, and I'll be there starting Monday.
Awesome, man. That's exciting. So what would be the one thing you would want our viewers to take home from our time on this podcast?
Just on business side of things, just be honest and be transparent and say what you think. Don't say what you think other people want you to think. Just be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if they like you, great. If they don't, that's the way it goes.
That is so good. Well, Tom, thank you so much for carving out some time to be with us. We really appreciate you. And we continue success with either a hole in one or a haircut. Either one.
Either one I win.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Totally.
Well, I appreciate the time and our friendship and and your continued progress on the physical side of things. We need to get out there and play some golf.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. Thank you, Tom.